In this video I'm going to install bifold doors on a closet. And the first thing I want to say is if you've already got your closet made, or it's an existing closet or opening that you're putting your bifold doors into, then you can skip about the first 6 minutes of this video, because that first 6 minutes I talk about some things to keep in mind as far as the actual opening if you're making the opening for the doors. Doing a video today on installing bifold doors. Now the first thing that you want to do is decide how big of an opening you have to fit your bifold doors into. And once you know the size that you're going to cover with the bifold doors, you go to your hardware store and look on the chart for the bifold door. Now it's laid out here on the size selection chart, and these 24 by 79, the 79 inches is the height of the opening. So all the doors are the same height, but over here on the left we see the different sizes. So if you have a 24 inch opening, or a 30 inch opening, 32 inch, 36 inch, in the scenario that I'm doing, up here it says use 2 bifold units for a 48 inch, 60 or a 72 inch opening. So I am going to use 2 units and cover in a 72 inch opening. So you probably won't be doing a 72 inch opening. I'm going to assume that most people are going to be installing the doors in a pre-existing closet. In this scenario I've actually am making a closet, and as I pan the camera over, there's the 2x4s, and way over here on the other side is the other studs, and the opening is 72 inches wide. This isn't going to be a video on how to build a closet, but I am going to just throw in a couple little hints here if you happen to be in the same scenario that I'm doing. And the chart on the door will give us the rough opening size. So in other words, our door is 79 inches high, and over here under the fits finished opening column, it fits a finished opening of 24 by 80 1/4 inches to 83 1/4 inches. So in other words, even though the door is going to be 79 inches high, our opening can be anywhere from 80 1/4 inches to 80 3/4 inches. I usually split the difference, and I'll say the halfway between 80 1/4 and 80 3/4 is 80 1/2. So I make my opening around there, and then I'll adjust the door accordingly. I have 2 bifold doors, 36 inch doors, so the 2 of them are going to fit an opening of 72 inches. So you want to measure the opening you're going to cover, and in my scenario here I made it a little extra wide, 73 and probably about 1/4 inches, and I'll just adjust the doors as need be. I'd rather have a little bit bigger and adjust the doors than obviously too small. So if you happen to be in the scenario that I'm in, where you're actually building the opening, this is just a quick tip maybe you might want to try. I've just put a couple of screws, just screwed them in a couple of thread into the door casing here, because before I really finish this opening off with the gyprock and everything, I'm going to lean the doors in here just to make sure that everything is as I suspected. And I just put those screws in there into the studs so that I can lay the door in and see how it looks. Another thing I like to do, just at this point, take the level, go around, put it along the door. Rough idea, yeah, that's close enough. It is only a closet after all. Then I'll stick it on the horizontal, and you get the general idea. And the instructions for hanging your door are on the back of this document here, and they're I gotta say, they're pretty good in my opinion. Staples on the side of the door that are for the packing material can be a little stubborn. You can get them up with a set of pliers or pry them off with a screwdriver. Whatever works. So if you're installing the doors in, as I say, a newly constructed space, and you lay them in like I'm doing here just to verify that there's not going to be any unpleasant surprises later and that the opening is too small, be careful about your fingers. These bifold doors seem to just be designed to grab your fingers as you're opening them up. And lay them in there carefully. It might be a good idea if you have a second person around to give you a hand with those. Anyway, we can see that there's some obviously really big gaps. But that's fine, it's only a closet, and once I adjust these up, that won't be nearly as dramatic. And the major thing is that they actually will fit in the space. The opening is big enough. If you installed screws in the studs to lay the doors against, once you've verified that, don't forget to get those screws out of the way so you don't catch yourself on them as you're working. Okay, so now we're actually ready to install the bifold doors. And as you can see, I have the two of them just laid into place here. And one thing I want to point out about these doors is that although this door is going to open this way to the right, standing in front of it, and this door is going to open to the left, there's actually no difference at all in these two doors. What's going to determine which way they're going to open is the hardware that is included with the bifold door kit. Now, there might be other types of kits, but any doors I've installed, this is basically how it goes, and the decision as to which way the door is going to open depends on where this hardware is installed. So, for example, for this door, I'm going to obviously want to open this way. And watch your fingers when you do any of this stuff, because these things are really bad for catching fingers. So this door here is going to open to the right. So it's going to be fixed on the right corner over here. It's fixed in position here, and it's going to be fixed in position down below on the same corner. And this piece of hardware is what is going to follow along in the track up above. So on this door, we're going to want this round unit here to travel within the track. On this door here, because it's going to be fixed on the bottom, just check with my videographer, can you see this piece of hardware there? That is the piece that is going to be in the fixed position on the bottom of the door. And this piece of hardware is going to be the piece that is in the fixed portion of the door on the top. So hopefully, can you see the top of the door there? Okay, perfect. So basically, if you can see this, on this door, it's going to be this piece of hardware on the right hand side, this piece of hardware with an adjustable screw is going to be inserted on the right side of the door on the bottom, and this one is going to be on the top left, and it's going to be the other way around on the other door. So if you think you might lose track of it, and that can happen actually, then you might want to just, even because these doors, you're going to paint them, you might just want to mark right while the door is in position, mark which ones you're going to have, or just lay them into place. The next thing I'm going to do is we're going to install them in the door. So when I put these in, the instructions say tap them into place, which I always find kind of humorous when I read something like that, because when you see me install these in the door, I don't think the word tap them into place is appropriate. Maybe more of a term like pound them into place with a hammer. But what I'm going to do, just because, as I say, once these go in, they're not coming out, unless somebody knows a trick that I don't, because I made the mistake one time and I couldn't get them out without damaging the door. So this is my door that's going to be on the right side of my closet. So just so I don't lose track of it, I'm going to install, just place it right there, so that when I lay these down on the floor and close up the bifold, it's surprising how easy it can be to lose track of where everything goes. So there's my fixed corner of the door here. This one's going to be fixed in place. So I drop that piece of hardware in there, and here's our one that's going to travel in the track on the unfixed part of the side of the door. This is the door that's going to move within the track, and I'm just going to place that in there. So now when I lay these down to pound these into place, I won't lose track, and knowing that this is for the fixed side of the door, I'll be able to keep track of this side when I put the one in the bottom. So this is the part where I'm going to put the pivots in the top of the door, and I just looked at the instructions and it says several light taps should do it. So let's see, maybe it'll make a liar out of me. Now what I always do with these is I push this in, because you don't want to be banging on that with that spring coming out of there. And I take a little piece of wood, lie it flat on top of the pivot. Actually, hopefully this will show up in the camera. So I'm just going to push the pivot in, and then I'll give it these light taps they're talking about here. Actually, that one wasn't too bad compared to some of them I've done. So you can see that that's gone in. This is where it's going to, hopefully that plastic white fitting there will show. We're going to pound that in until that's seated right in the door there. So again, push that in. And I can see that that's now seated in there. Now we'll do the other one. If I recall correctly, this is the one that's usually stubborn. So again, push that in. Hopefully this is coming out okay on the video there. Let's place it a little bit here. I don't think I'd call those light taps, but they're going in pretty good. So as you can see, took a fair amount of force to get those in, and I wouldn't want to be trying to get those out. So that's why I say just kind of take a little extra time and make sure you put them in the right spots on the door. Now I'm going to put the bottom one in place. Okay, so here's the bottom one that goes into the fixed portion of the door. I'm going to screw that in just a bit there into the fitting itself, so that I'm not pounding on this and it's moving around within this. It's only a plastic unit, so I don't want to be too hard on it. Put that into place there. Have one last look to make sure I'm putting it on the right side of the door. I went up, looked at the other end of the door. This is the door. This is the bifold part here that is staying in the fixed position. So we're going to keep that. And hopefully, move that over, you can see that that is in place. And I'm going to screw that out a bit for when I go to actually place the door. So the top of the bifold door is going to travel in a track like this. What I've done is I've held the track up into place where I want it. They say in the instructions to put it in the middle of the area you're securing the track to. I've decided I don't want mine in the middle. Did a little bit of crack filling over on the side of the door that I would just as soon not show because it didn't come out quite right. So what I did, they recommend 1/8 of an inch over here. So I held a little piece of shingle in on this side of the track, keep it out there, and then I measured in 1 3/4 inches, which is where I want it to be. Now I marked along here, a couple little marks, 1 3/4 in on the inside of my track, so I don't see the marks from out there. And hopefully you can see I actually then took a little nail and just hammered little holes in there, because it's a lot easier to get these screws into place when you've already pre-marked the holes. And now that I've got those screws started here, my track hanging off of them, I'm just going to go along and tighten those all up into place. At this point I have the 2 tracks installed. There's our other one, and note the pivot bracket are in the corners of the closet on either side. So we got a pivot bracket here because the door here is going to open this way, and all the way over. There's our other pivot bracket up here because this door on the right is going to open that way. So next we have to install at the floor level our bracket down here, and the center of this bracket is going to, you're going to want to have the center of that bracket out the same distance from your closet door as the pivot bracket on the top. So what I'm saying there is we're going to go up to the top of the closet here and get out your tape measure if you don't already know this. And in our case, the center of our bracket is, that center hole there is about 1 3/8 out from this hole here, 1 3/8 out from the front of the closet. So down at the bottom I'm going to put this bracket so the center of it is also 1 3/8 out, and that will line things up so that your door is plumb in the closet, straight up and down. So for the bottom bracket, and I'm looking at the left side of the closet door, here's the front of the closet over here. So I've put a little mark on the floor there, you can probably see that, which that's the center line from that we measured before, the 1 3/8 in this case. And I marked a little one up here, so I'm going to have the center of the bracket at those 2 points. And also I'm going to I've marked a little bit on the front of my bracket here because the crack fill on the door is out a little bit here, and when I can tell that when I really screw that into the wall, that's going to end up at an angle. We want this to be flush with the front of the closet. So I'm just going to take my knife and just cut a little bit of that excess gyprock away there so that this bracket will be absolutely parallel to the front of the closet. So I cut away a little excess there, and that jam bracket's in place. I got it screwed down. I used the small screw that was in the package for this hole. It doesn't really specify, but laminate flooring, so I didn't really have very far to go because there's concrete under the laminate. Small screw there, big one there. Looks pretty much straight, so when I adjust the bottom of the door, it'll come in and out on these grooves here. The bottom adjustment for the fixed part of the door will set in here, move out, keep a little something for a guide there, and that looks pretty much like it's straight out at the bottom, so that's in place. So at this point I have the left side bifold door installed, and I have the right one just leaning there because I'm going to kind of do a brief synopsis of where we're at. So here's the left side door. That's installed. Seems to be operating pretty good. Now, over here, the right side bifold, just to remind you where we're at, I've got it up in place. Here is our guide pivot that is on the end of the door that is going to be staying in place. Over here on this side we have the pivot that is going to roll on the track. This is on the moving side of the door, and down on the bottom we have our fixed pivot down below. And just a note for the bottom pivot, it can be kind of hard on the floor, so watch the floor if you're doing like I'm doing and standing the door on the floor. I have a piece of shingle under there. So we're going to put this bifold door into place. As I say, I have a shingle underneath there to try to keep the floor from getting too damaged. And we're going to fit, if you can see, that top pivot that I spoke about into the hole in the bracket here. So what I'm going to do, get the door kind of in position, lift it up without trying to avoid scraping my floor all up. Good time to have steel-toe boots on if you got them, because you can kind of rest your door on your foot. And I'm going to slide this into place. Watch your fingers. And that's the pivot here that I want to get into the hole in that bracket. So I'm just going to lay the door gently down. I think it might be in there. No, so I'm going to push the bracket down a little bit and then release it right underneath that hole. Okay, so now it's in. So the top part is in. Now if we can, I'll get my videographer to focus on the bottom here for a minute. Okay, so now we're going to lift the bottom. This is a good time to have a pry bar. I'm going to just put a shingle right there for the moment. But a pry bar is a good way to do this. Actually, if you want to stop recording just for a second, I'm going to get the pry bar. Okay, so I've decided to save my fingers the grief. I've got the pry bar here. Try it that way or this way, whichever one seems to give you the lift you want. So, again, careful with your fingers. Pry this up into place. Then drop that bottom. This is a little bit of a part where you gotta kind of watch and try to look underneath, and you'll see when the bottom pivot there goes into place. I think I might actually take the video camera in a couple of minutes and just zoom in on that if I can. So anyway, you'll know when it hits. It just fell in there. You'll feel that. Okay, so now we get the bottom in place. So if I just give it a gentle movement, we can tell that the top and the bottom are in. Now, we need this side to go into the track. So if I push my finger down on the pivot there, that's going to go into the bracket, and just move the door underneath the bracket, keep that down. Now I'm going to release it because it's under the bracket. And there we go. So this has kind of worked out good because I wanted to show a little bit more about that bottom adjustment because we couldn't really show it before. And even from this distance we can tell that the door on the right is lower than the door on the left. Big gap there. So we're going to adjust that through the height adjustment, which is that bottom pivot. And just to get a rough idea of the height I'm looking for, I can put the fat end of 2 shingles under the door on the left. So that's the height I'm going to want on the door on the right. Okay, so this is the most uncomfortable video position I've been in. Hopefully this will come out. Corner of the closet. Here's that bottom bracket we installed on the floor here. Here's my shingles. So I'm going to take my pry bar, lift the bottom of the door up carefully. This is a good time to have an assistant handy too to maybe stabilize things, but I'm going to push my two shingles in to the right height, and now hopefully I'll get to show you what I'm talking about with that adjustment. So here it is, and as I turn that, hopefully you can see that bottom pivot in the door going down. So that's going to raise the door up. Hopefully you have the idea. I'm going to get a screwdriver actually and just take it to screw that right down into the bracket. It's quite a production really, but if I lift that, I can really move that quite easily with the screwdriver there, and then I'm just going to drop the weight of the door back on there, and I think we're just about right. So we have the height we wanted, but the door is not plumb. Now we could take a level and put it against the side of the door to do that, but we don't really need to do that here because we can tell that the bottom of the door is almost right in against the closet. This my little high-tech measuring tool, the shingle here, will hardly go in down there. Then we go up a couple of feet and it's way in there. So to adjust the door vertically to make it plumb, we can go two ways. We can pry the bottom out, and the little adjustment that we looked at a second ago, just put this down here, get that, pry it up, and I'm going to move that door out to the left, drop it back into place. So that's how we adjust the bottom to make the door more or less vertical. Now we're going to do the top. So now I want to move the top of the door closer to the door frame over here. So we're going to adjust the top adjuster here, that top pivot, and we're going to have to go into the closet and open the door from inside there to do that adjustment. So as I said, to get that adjustment made here, we're going to have to do that from inside the closet. So just to get your bearings, we're walking in, open up the door, and there's that pivot bracket, which from looking at the closet doors from the outside, this is on the right side of the closet, and there's that bracket here. So now if we open up that door more, we'll get better access to that. And what I did was, before taping, because I couldn't hold this, and I just put a little mark right there, so where the end of that bracket is now. So I just took my little marker there, hopefully you can see that little black line, and I loosened off this Phillips head screw also a bit. So now to adjust that, we just loosen off this, going counterclockwise, and then you should be able to push that over. You can see that we moved over, see our line. Now if I tighten that up again, the whole door, I'm going to keep tightening that, as the top of the door has now been moved closer into the door frame here. So that's how you get the adjustment on the top. So overall that's not too bad. They're kind of halfways decently lined up. I'll play with those adjustments later, but hopefully you have the idea of how you adjust those doors. And now we have to install our door pulls. Basically a knob. So the screws for those are pretty long, so I advise taking a drill bit that is roughly that same size and drill a hole once you've decided where you want to put that doorknob. So I decided on a spot 35 inches up from the bottom of the door, 15 inches in. Seems as good as any, and just drill straight through. From the back of the door, push the screw, and in this kit it's one of the ones with a larger head on it, so it'll keep from sliding through the door too easy. Push that through. I may drill that hole a little bit bigger. Anyway, from the back of the door you want to put that screw through, and then for the front of the door we're going to screw the knob onto that. And once the screw comes through the front of the door, take your doorknob and just turn that on clockwise, and you're going to have to hold your screwdriver, which in this case is a Phillips head, hold that screw from the opposite side of the door and then push that knob on, turning it to tighten it up. So I'm holding that Phillips head screw from the other side of the door here and tightening that on there. So I'm looking at my tracks here, and this little unit is called a snugger guide, and that's going to pop up into the track, one for each door. Just a little note, because I had to change some of the screws around in this package. At this point here where the end of the track is and these snuggers are going to go, you're going to want to use the flat screw, because when we put that up into place the snugger will move over it. Now the other screws, and they didn't specify this in the instructions, but there are other screws to put these guides up, and they have a round head on it, and that snugger will not travel over that round head. So that's just a little note. So to get that snugger guide in the track, just kind of hold it up in place and slide one edge in over the groove. Hopefully that'll show up, and then if you push up on the other edge, a little tricky, see if we can get this on here. Da-da-da. Like that. I want to get one edge in under the track and hold this camera at the same time, and then push up on it, and that's the idea. Pop it into place, and the instructions say too it's optional when you get double doors like this that you can put a screw up in there to keep these two from binding up, and I think I'm going to do that. I'm just going to drive a screw into the door casing here. Something like that. So, if you're installing a double set of bifold doors, like I am here, we are supposed to put these aligners on them so that apparently they will snap closed, and I say to put them about 12 inches up. So there's a foot. We'll install one on this door. I'm just going to move that just so you can get your bearings in case you're not sure what part of the door you're looking at. So there's a foot, and according to the little diagram it's supposed to be about like that, and it's going to adjust on these slotted screws here. So what I'm going to do are those slotted screw holes, so you can adjust them in and out. So I'm just going to put that in around the foot mark where they said, and I'm just going to mark a couple of little marks right in the middle of those slotted screw holes there. And then I'm going to put my screws in there. And there are the two aligners installed. And that's basically it. I got to adjust these doors up a little bit, line them up a little bit better, put that second door handle on the left door, and that's about it. Put my trim around them, and hopefully that helps.